Have you ever given everything and still felt forgotten? Have you ever sacrificed your time, your energy, your very soul for others, only to one day wake up and wonder where it all went? There comes a morning, quiet and unassuming, when you stare at the ceiling and feel something unfamiliar, an emptiness that wasn't there before. It's not loud, not urgent, but it's real. You look back on your life and see decades spent giving, supporting, holding everything together for your children, your spouse, your work, your world, and now, as the seasons of your life begin to shift, a quiet question surfaces like a whisper in the wind. After all I've given, what is left for me? Life moves like the morning mist that rises from a still river, beautiful, fleeting, and gone before you even realize it. You've poured yourself into others, into building, nurturing, and protecting, always placing their needs above your own. But now, standing quietly at a new threshold, you may begin to wonder, where did all that energy go? And more painfully still, who is giving anything back to me? Buddhism offers us a gentle yet piercing truth. Attachment to expectations creates suffering. We often live under the silent belief that our love, our loyalty, and our care will be returned in kind. That our sacrifices will one day be honored, and that those we once held up will hold us in return. But the world doesn't always work that way. Life doesn't pause to reflect or repay. The younger generation is busy chasing dreams, fighting their own battles, carving paths in a world that never stops moving. And if we spend our later years clinging to their attention, chasing their recognition, trying to secure a place in their whirlwind lives, we may find ourselves drained, disappointed, and quietly bitter. So, what now? What is the answer? It's not found in pleading for appreciation. It's not in keeping relationships that no longer nourish your soul. The answer lies in choosing yourself. Not from ego, not from resentment, but from wisdom. You must now turn your gaze inward and gently reclaim all the energy you've given away so freely. It's time to tend to your own spirit, to sit with yourself, to heal, and to rediscover the peace that comes in solitude. This is not giving up on life. This is returning to what matters most. Because, in the end, the greatest act of love you can offer the world is to finally love yourself. 1. The illusion of reciprocity. Throughout our lives, we give, believing, almost religiously, that our kindness, our sacrifices, our unwavering support will someday return to us like waves washing back to shore. We give without keeping score, convinced that this invisible cycle of reciprocity will take care of us in the end. But time, as it always does, reveals a deeper truth. No matter how sincere our efforts, they are not always reflected back. This is the nature of impermanence, anicca. As the Buddha taught, everything changes, relationships evolve, people move on, circumstances shift like wind-blown sand. What once felt inseparably close can slowly dissolve into silence, distance, or even indifference. Picture an elderly man. He was once the rock of his family, the provider, the protector. In his youth, he worked without rest, giving his children every chance he never had. Late nights, early mornings, quiet sacrifices. His love was etched into every gesture he never spoke aloud. Perhaps he believed, perhaps too innocently, That when his time came, when he needed help, it would naturally be returned. But as the years passed, the calls became fewer, the family dinners faded, visits were promised but rarely fulfilled. Now, he sits by the window watching a world that no longer includes him. And in that quiet, a realization settles. Love given does not always come back the way we hope. This illusion of reciprocity is deeply woven into human relationships. We tell ourselves that love begets love, that kindness will circle back, but life has its own flow. And sometimes, that flow carries people far from the shores where we once stood waiting. It's a hard truth to accept. Love doesn't always return the way we imagined. And as we saw in the previous story, expectations can quietly lead us into disappointment. The belief that loyalty guarantees loyalty is comforting. But life has its own rhythm. It doesn't always flow where we want it to go. We often carry in our hearts an unspoken contract: if I give love, I will be loved back. But here's the reality: that contract lives only in our minds. We write it, sign it, and cling to it, forgetting that no one else has agreed to its terms. Take May's story, for example. A woman who spent her entire life holding her family together. From childhood, she cared for her younger siblings without complaint. As an adult, she gave herself fully to her husband. And later, she poured all her energy into raising her children. Through every stage of life, she was the one everyone leaned on in moments of chaos. The problem solver, the healer, the heart of the home. But years passed. Her children grew up, started families of their own, and slowly drifted into lives that no longer revolved around her. The once busy home that echoed with laughter now sat silent. May called her children often, but the responses were short. Distracted, "I'll visit soon, Mom," they'd say, but soon never came. At first, May was devastated. She questioned herself. Had I failed? Was I not good enough? Why had the love she gave so freely disappeared into silence? But over time, through deep reflection and quiet sorrow, a powerful realization dawned on her. Attachment to expectations is the root of suffering. Love, she realized, exists, but it doesn't follow the rules of fairness we try to place upon it. She had given from the heart, and that was enough. Her peace didn't need to come from being repaid. It came from knowing she had loved without conditions. That, in itself, was a triumph. Buddhism teaches that suffering arises when we cling to people, to outcomes, to fixed ideas of how life should be. The moment we release that grip, we step into freedom. Love, like water, must be allowed to flow. When we try to bottle it up inside expectations, it grows stagnant. It transforms into resentment, into bitterness, into pain. But when love is given freely, without demands, it becomes a wellspring of peace. True generosity carries no conditions. There is incredible liberation in understanding this. Rather than dwelling on what hasn't been returned, we can turn inward. We can begin to give not because we hope to receive, but because giving is who we are. Care for others, not to earn their love later, but because it brings meaning and joy now. And when life inevitably shifts, when people drift, when love isn't returned in the way we imagined, meet that reality not with resistance, but with grace. This doesn't mean we become cold or detached. It doesn't mean we stop needing connection. It simply means we find a deeper balance, one that honors both presence and impermanence. Hold close the love that is present. Let go of what is absent. And trust that every soul walks its own path. Some may return to us. Others may not. And that's okay. That's life. So, let love be like the wind, something you feel deeply, but do not try to grasp. Let kindness be like sunlight, freely offered, asking for nothing in return. And above all, let peace grow from the simple truth that giving, in itself, is enough. 2. Reclaiming your energy. Old age is not a time to chase after people or plead for appreciation. It is a sacred time, a time to gently reclaim what you once gave away without hesitation: your energy, your peace, your self-respect. After years of giving, a quiet truth begins to take shape: your energy is yours to reclaim. You may have once believed that the love and attention you invested would return to you in time. But now, in the twilight of life, something deeper and more sobering becomes clear: if you don't reclaim your own energy, no one else will do it for you. This isn't about shutting the world out or isolating yourself. No, it's about something far more powerful. It's about putting yourself first, perhaps for the very first time. It means realizing that your well-being is not some luxury to be earned after everyone else is cared for. It is the very foundation of a meaningful, fulfilling life. So rather than reaching out for attention or clinging to approval from those who are too busy with their own worlds, you must gently turn inward and ask, what truly brings me joy? What dreams have I quietly buried? What is still possible for me in this life? The answers may surprise you. Perhaps you once imagined painting sunsets on canvas, but life swept that dream aside. Maybe you longed to travel, to explore faraway places, but responsibilities always came first. Or maybe it's something far more simple: sitting quietly on the porch with a warm cup of tea, listening to leaves dance in the wind, allowing yourself to simply exist, without the pressure to perform, walking alone through nature, returning to books long left unopened, practicing mindfulness, not as a trend, but as a return to your own soul. Let's consider the story of Mr. Huang, a retired schoolteacher who spent his entire life shaping the minds of others. For 4 decades, he gave everything: his knowledge, his patience, his heart, to his students. He stayed up late grading papers, tutored struggling children after hours, and gave up personal time to make sure others could succeed. He assumed, perhaps naturally, that when he reached his later years, he'd be surrounded by former students, co-workers, and his family. He imagined gratitude would come back to him like a warm embrace. But life moved forward. His students built their own lives. His children became preoccupied with their own families. The school that once depended on him moved on and hired a younger teacher. The realization was painful. Mr. Huang had spent so long giving to others that he had forgotten how to give to himself. Then, one day, a friend made a simple suggestion: "Why don't you pick up the violin again?" It had been his childhood passion, long abandoned. His first reaction was one many of us would have: "I'm too old to start again." But with nothing to lose, He gave it a try. The first few weeks were clumsy. His fingers didn't move like they used to. The bow felt foreign. The notes came out uneven. But slowly, gracefully, the music began to flow. Not perfectly, but beautifully, in a way only he could appreciate. And in those melodies, he found something he hadn't felt in years, a joy that belonged solely to him. Playing the violin didn't serve any grand purpose. It didn't earn him applause or recognition, but it filled him with peace. And in that peace, he rediscovered himself. Buddhism speaks of samadhi, a deep state of concentration and stillness. When we reclaim our energy, we are practicing one of the highest forms of self-care. It is not indulgent, it is not selfish, it is wise. Because your well-being matters just as deeply as the well-being of those you've spent a lifetime caring for. Picture a candle that has burned for years, giving light to others, now flickering low at the wick. If it does not pause to be rekindled, how will it continue to shine? Your energy, your peace, your inner light, these are not resources to be endlessly drained. They must be honored, protected, and restored. As we learned from Mr. Huang's story, reclaiming your peace is not selfish, it is an act of wisdom. And now, from reclaiming your energy, we step into something equally powerful, yet often misunderstood, the quiet strength of silence. In our younger years, silence can seem awkward or even threatening. We feel an overwhelming need to speak, to explain ourselves, to defend our choices, to prove our value. We raise our voices in hopes of being heard, believing that words alone can shape the world around us. But as the years pass, something shifts. A deeper awareness begins to take hold. We start to see that most people don't listen to understand, they listen to reply. Conversations become more like battles than bridges. Words are hurled like weapons. Arguments escalate, and yet, no one truly wins. Buddhism teaches us the principle of right speech, samavaka, one of the eightfold paths to enlightenment. This doesn't mean never speaking at all. It means speaking with intention, choosing your words with care. It means speaking only when your words are rooted in truth, when they serve kindness, when they carry purpose, and when they do not. Then silence is not weakness, it is wisdom. There is a story often told in Zen circles. An elderly monk, once a renowned scholar, had spent decades of his life engaging in spirited debates, exploring philosophical truths, and refining his teachings. One day, he encountered a brash young student, eager, loud, and full of self-confidence. The student challenged him with rapid-fire arguments, questioning the monk's relevance and dismissing his ideas as outdated. The monk, calm and still, listened. He nodded occasionally, offering no interruption, no correction, and when the student finished his tirade, the old monk simply smiled and said, "Thank you for sharing your thoughts." Then, without another word, he walked away. The student stood there, speechless. He had expected a counterattack, a defense, a battle of ideas, but the monk had left him with nothing to fight against, no resistance, no ego, just stillness. In time, the young man would come to understand, not every battle must be fought. Silence can be the highest expression of wisdom. Now picture another scene. An old man, speaking to a younger colleague, trying to make him understand the value of experience. But the younger man, confident in his modern knowledge, waves him off, insisting the old ways are no longer valid. The elder man could argue, could push back, could try to make him see, but instead, he simply smiles. He walks away. He carries his wisdom not in his voice, but in his peace. That is the power of silence. In today's world, so loud, so fast, so full of notifications and opinions, it takes real strength to choose stillness. We are conditioned to react, to respond, to speak first and think later. But silence is not just the absence of sound. It is a discipline, a practice, and most importantly, it is a form of inner mastery. It is the ability to listen deeply without interrupting, to observe without judging, to let others speak without needing to correct them, to hear opinions that differ from your own, and feel no urge to argue. There's an old Zen saying, "Do not speak unless you can improve the silence." And truly, how many words spoken in anger or pride have ever made a moment better? How many times have we said something in frustration, and wished we could take it back? Real power is not in how often we speak, but in how deeply we understand, without saying anything at all. Picture a mother and daughter, locked in a heated argument. The daughter, emotional and overwhelmed, accuses her mother of being overprotective, too controlling. The mother is hurt. The urge to explain herself bubbles up. But she breathes. She stays quiet. She listens, not to respond, but to allow her daughter to feel seen. She lets the storm pass. And when the daughter finally runs out of words, the mother gently says, "Sometimes, the most powerful response is no response at all." As we saw before, silence, when paired with presence, can carry more weight than any lengthy defense ever could. But that doesn't mean silence is always the answer. There are moments in life when words are necessary, when injustice must be challenged, when truth must be spoken aloud. The difference lies in the intention behind the words. Are you speaking from ego? From the need to be right? Or are your words coming from clarity, purpose, and compassion? A wise person understands the difference. They know that silence is not weakness, it is mastery over one's impulses. It is the calm strength of knowing that some arguments are not worth the effort, that some people are not ready to listen, that sometimes walking away with peace is far more valuable than winning a point. So the next time you feel the urge to defend yourself, to prove your worth with words, pause. Ask yourself, is this truly necessary? Will what I say bring clarity, or just more noise? And if you're unsure, choose stillness. Let your presence and your wisdom speak louder than your voice. Because in the end, it's not the loudest voice that holds the most power, but the one that speaks only when it truly matters. 4. Observing instead of interfering. There's another deeply human tendency we must learn to observe. The urge to fix, to guide, to protect. It comes from love, from lived experience, from having walked through our own struggles and wanting to spare others from the same pain. We see a child making a mistake we know will hurt. We watch a friend spiral in self-destructive habits, and the instinct rises to step in, to stop them, to save them. But here's the truth: wisdom that is not asked for is rarely received. Most people have to walk their own path. They have to trip over their own stones. They must feel the sting of consequence to truly learn. Even the Buddha, when approached to intervene in others' disputes, often responded with silence. Not from indifference, but from understanding. Suffering is a teacher. Struggle is a sculptor. It carves away ignorance. It shapes clarity. It teaches lessons that words alone cannot offer. If we step in too early, if we take away the pain before its lesson has been delivered, we may rob someone of the exact experience they need to grow. Think of the caterpillar. It must wrestle with the cocoon. That struggle is what gives its wings the strength to fly. If someone gently peels the cocoon open, thinking they're helping, the butterfly may emerge, but it will never soar. Now, let's look at a real story. Anand, a devoted son, watched his father gamble away their family's wealth night after night. Anand pleaded, reasoned, even cried. He brought relatives to help. He laid out the consequences. But his father wouldn't change. So Anand did the hardest thing he'd ever done. He let go. Instead of trying to force a change that wouldn't come, he turned inward. He worked hard. He built a secure future for himself. And most importantly, he refused to let his father's choices dictate his own peace. Eventually, after years of reckless living, Anand's father hit rock bottom. But when he finally came to Anand, it wasn't for money. It was for understanding. Only after walking through the full weight of his consequences was he ready to listen. This is detachment, not abandonment, but trust. Trust that others must learn in their own time. Trust that your love does not always need to interfere to be real. Letting go isn't about giving up, it's about trusting life's natural rhythm. As we explored earlier, true detachment means stepping back with love, not walking away in indifference. It's a form of wisdom, knowing when to observe without interfering. And now, we continue that path by learning how to let go of control while staying rooted in compassion. Trust that the universe unfolds exactly as it should. Trust that people will encounter their own lessons, in their own time, at their own pace. Even when you see the storm approaching, it doesn't always mean you should drag someone to shelter. Sometimes, they need to stand in the rain to truly understand why shelter matters. Detachment is not indifference. It's not cold, distant, or unfeeling. It is the beautiful, sometimes painful, ability to love someone deeply without trying to possess them, to care fully, without needing to control the outcome. It means turning your focus away from the things you cannot control, like someone else's path, and redirecting it inward. To your own energy, your own actions, your own peace. Picture this. You're holding a delicate bird in your hand. Squeeze too tightly, and you'll crush it. Hold your hand open, and it may stay, or it may fly away. But either way, both you and the bird are free. Consider the story of an old fisherman who lived by a fast-flowing river. Each day, he watched young men challenge the current, struggling to swim across treacherous waters. Often, he felt the urge to shout warnings, "Take the safer path downstream." But he held back. He understood something many don't. Some lessons can't be taught. They must be lived. And so, he remained silent. Eventually, those who struggled learned how to move more skillfully through the water. Some failed, then returned wiser. Others developed deep respect for the river's power. Had the fishermen intervened too early, their wisdom may have never formed. Not everything needs our interference. Not every struggle is ours to stop. There is an art to restraint, an inner knowing that life is not always ours to shape. Sometimes, we must let the river carry others where it will. True wisdom is knowing when to speak, and when to stay silent, when to step forward, and when to simply stand back. So next time you feel the urge to correct someone, to jump in and fix a mistake, pause for a moment. Ask yourself, am I doing this for them, or to ease my discomfort with their struggle? If the honest answer is the latter, let go. Let go of the need to control what was never yours to carry. Instead, return to what you can truly influence, your thoughts, your energy, your direction, because in the end, the only person you have the real power to change is yourself. 5. Letting go of the need for approval. Another subtle yet powerful source of human suffering is our deep desire for approval. From the moment we're born, we begin learning to seek it through praise, acceptance, love. We learn to strive for it in school, in friendships, in family dynamics. This craving burrows deep, influencing everything: how we dress, the careers we chase, even the relationships we enter. People spend years, sometimes their whole lives, shaping themselves around how others might see them. They fear judgment. They long to be appreciated. They ache for someone to notice their worth. But as the later chapters of life arrive, a quieter question begins to whisper. Why am I still trying to prove myself? When we stop trying to control others, another question arises. Why are we still trying to impress them? Letting go of control is only one layer. The next is deeper, the silent, persistent need for approval. And few stories reflect this better than that of Lila. Lila had spent her entire life trying to be what others expected. As a wife, she was the devoted partner. As a mother, she put her children's needs before her own, every single time. But in her 60s, after her husband had passed and her children had built lives of their own, she found herself standing in an unfamiliar silence. And in that silence, a sobering thought echoed. I have never truly lived for myself. Every choice, every sacrifice, had been made to gain someone else's approval. Now, with no one left to perform for, she stood alone and wondered, who am I when no one is watching? The truth is, no amount of praise or external recognition can bring lasting peace. The more we chase approval, the more power we surrender. As the Buddha taught, true happiness doesn't come from being understood by others, but from understanding yourself. Imagine a traveler burdened by a heavy sack strapped to their back. It's not filled with physical items, but with expectations. What society says they should be. What family demands. what friends assume. Each step forward feels heavier, slower, harder. But imagine this. What if the traveler stopped for just a moment and set that burden down? What if they realized that the journey, without the weight of needing to be approved, could be easier, lighter, even joyful? That is the freedom of letting go. Letting go doesn't mean becoming cold or isolating yourself. It means redefining where your worth comes from. It means asking yourself, do I like who I am? Am I living in alignment with my values? It is the quiet shift from looking outward for validation to turning inward for peace. And in that shift, there is profound liberation. Take the story of Anand, a successful businessman. For decades, he pursued recognition. He built a powerful company, amassed wealth, earned admiration. By all outward measures, he had made it. But inside, he felt empty. There was always another goal to reach, another person to impress, another standard to meet. Eventually, Anand walked away. He left the boardrooms and city lights behind, moving to a small village where no one cared about his titles. For the first time, he lived not for others but for himself. He woke with the sunrise, worked with his hands, and found joy in the simple rhythm of daily life. When a former colleague visited and asked, "Don't you miss the prestige?" Anand simply smiled and said, "I have nothing to prove, and that is my greatest achievement." The need for approval is a mirage. It tempts us, then disappears. It keeps us running toward something we can never quite reach. Because approval is fleeting, always shifting based on others' opinions. But self-acceptance, that's different. It is rooted. It is unshakable. It is the foundation of lasting peace. Think of the great sages, the monks who live in silence, the teachers who live in obscurity. They are not chasing applause. They are not concerned with being seen. They have found something greater, contentment within themselves. Letting go of the need for approval is not something that happens overnight. It takes time, awareness, and courage. Courage to say, "I am enough as I am," even when the world says otherwise. It means standing firm in your truth, even if it disappoints others. It's the art of choosing authenticity over acceptance, peace over performance. So pause for a moment. Ask yourself, what would my life look like if I stopped needing others to approve of it? Once you stop seeking approval from others, you begin to ask a more powerful question. What would I do if I only needed my own approval? That single shift, from external validation to internal clarity, changes everything. So ask yourself gently, what choices would I make if I truly didn't care about what others think? And then, one small step at a time, start walking in that direction. Because at the end of the day, the only person whose approval truly matters is your own. Conclusion: choosing yourself. The greatest act of self-respect is realizing that your well-being is not some indulgent luxury. It is a necessity, a sacred responsibility. For far too long, we've been taught that prioritizing ourselves is selfish, that choosing peace means turning our backs on others. But the truth is far simpler. You cannot pour from an empty cup. Your body, your mind, your spirit, they are like a tree. And like any living thing, They need sunlight, nourishment, and space to grow. Without care, they wither. With attention, they flourish. Take a moment, breathe. When was the last time you checked in with yourself? Not just your physical health, but your emotional clarity? Your mental stillness? Your spiritual alignment? When was the last time you sat in silence, not with the noise of obligation, but with the truth of your own heart? Life sweeps us into an endless current of expectations. Deadlines, responsibilities, the needs of others. But in moments like this, you are invited to pause and return home to yourself. As you enter this next chapter, perhaps older, perhaps wiser, remember this. You do not owe anyone an explanation for choosing peace. You don't need permission to make yourself a priority. Happiness isn't something that's handed to you. It's something you claim. Let go of what you thought you were supposed to be. Release the expectations that don't belong to you. Step freely into your own presence. You've spent years, maybe even decades, giving, adjusting, sacrificing. But this moment is yours. This chapter belongs to you. It is time to nurture your well-being, to create joy, to feel the profound, grounded contentment of simply existing as you are. There is a quiet, powerful beauty in choosing yourself, not from rebellion, but from love. Love for the person you've become. Love for the journey you've endured. Love for the life still waiting to unfold on your terms. The river of life keeps flowing, and so must you, but not chasing validation, not begging for approval. Move forward with the quiet grace of someone who finally understands. Peace is not found outside. It is cultivated within, so take a deep breath. Feel the weight lifting from your shoulders, and step into your next chapter with grace, with self-trust, and with unwavering respect for yourself. Your happiness is not up for debate. It is yours to define, yours to create, yours to fully embrace. And if this message spoke to your heart, if you felt even a small shift within, consider subscribing to this channel. Here, we walk this path together. Finding wisdom, seeking peace, honoring each step. Because the most meaningful journey you'll ever take is the one where you finally, unapologetically, choose yourself. Thank you for being here. Until next time, take care of yourself, because you are worth it.